They say strength has a sound. Sometimes it's the thud of a glove hitting a bag. Sometimes it's silence, the kind that follows when the underestimated finally rise. It was past midnight at the Iron Crest Boxing Club, the kind of place where the walls gleamed with gold plaques and ambition. Under the harsh lights, Maya Carter pushed a mop across the spotless floor, her reflection bending in the polished surface. Every night she cleaned this place. Chrome weights, leather benches, and sweat that wasn't hers to shed. She kept her head low, but her eyes were sharp, scanning the photos on the wall, a line of male champions grinning with pride. Not one woman among them, not one face that looked like hers. The click of polished shoes echoed across the gym floor. Richard Hale, the owner, entered with his group of wealthy investors, their laughter rolling through the air like they owned it. Because they did. Well, Richard smirked, his tone dripping with arrogance. Let's see if the help can take a hit better than she takes orders. Laughter, a sound that cut deep. Maya froze, the mop handle tightening in her hands. The smell of bleach and expensive cologne mixed in the air, a clash of two worlds that were never meant to meet. Come on, Hale, one investor chuckled. You're not serious. Oh, I am, Richard replied. His eyes glinted toward Maya. It'll give our champion here a warm-up. Their champion, Troy Bennett, stepped forward, tall, broad, and smirking like a man who'd never been told no. He threw lazy jabs into the air, more for show than skill. Evening, sweetheart, he said, voice dripping with mockery. You sure you can hold a mop in a stance? Maya looked up, meeting his eyes, calm, steady. She said nothing, just set the mop aside. Richard's grin widened. Perfect. Why don't you step into the ring, Maya? Give Troy something to show off for the gentleman. Phones came out. The laughter grew. She felt every pair of eyes burning into her, seeing not a person but a joke waiting to happen. Her pulse hammered. Her face burned. But when Richard said, unless you're worried about your job, her heart hardened. She thought of the bills stacked at home, of her grandmother, Lena, sleeping under the soft hum of an oxygen machine, of the hospital's red-lettered notice sitting on the kitchen table. Maya took a deep breath and lifted her chin. No headgear? She asked. Troy snorted. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll go easy. She stepped into the ring barefoot, the cold mat biting into her skin. Every movement deliberate, controlled. The men around her whispered, snickered, placed bets. Troy danced lazily, throwing air punches, smiling for the cameras. Last chance to back out, he teased. But Maya's eyes had changed. What had been humiliation now burned with something sharper, focus. Her fingers brushed the small jade charm tied around her wrist, a keepsake from her grandfather, a fighter long before her time. He'd told her once, never let them see all your power. Save it for when they least expect it. The bell rang. Troy stepped forward. Maya didn't flinch. She moved just enough to let his first jab slide past her shoulder. A movement so clean, so precise, it made one of the men gasp. Troy blinked, thrown off for half a second. And in that second she pivoted, slipped left and touched his ribs with a quick, perfect counter. Not enough to hurt, just enough to prove a point. He stumbled. The laughter stopped. Richard's face drained of color. No one said a word. Maya didn't wait for permission to leave. She stepped down from the ring, picked up her mop, and went back to work. Not a sound came from the watching crowd, just the quiet hum of the lights and the echo of something new in the air. Respect. Or maybe fear. That night, as Maya walked home through the empty streets, her knuckles ached and her heart pounded, but deep inside something had shifted. The world had finally seen a glimpse of what she'd buried for years, and this, and she knew, was only the beginning. Morning came heavy, pressing down like the weight of unfinished dreams. Maya woke to the shrill alarm at 4:30 a.m., her body sore from the night before. Her hands still remembered the feel of the gloves, the sting of impact, the eyes watching her in disbelief. Her one-room apartment was small and cold. A flickering bulb buzzed overhead. Bills sat stacked on the counter like silent accusations. The largest envelope bore a hospital seal and the words "Final Notice" in red. From behind a thin curtain, a weak cough broke the silence. Her grandmother, Lena, lay asleep in the next room, the rhythm of the oxygen machine filling the space with its steady hiss. Maya tiptoed over, adjusting the blanket around her frail body. Just one more month, she whispered softly. Hold on a little longer. By 5, she was on the street, hoodie pulled tight against the Chicago cold. The city was barely awake. Streetlights buzzed. A bus hissed to a stop nearby, releasing a handful of early shift workers into the dawn. Maya ran, not because she was training, and not yet, but because she couldn't stop herself. 6 miles before sunrise, through streets she'd known all her life. Past the corner store that had long gone out of business. Past the shuttered bakery where her grandfather once worked before every fight. In her mind, she heard his voice, deep, steady, a reminder of everything he'd taught her. Speed can be taught. Timing must be earned. When she reached the edge of the river, the first rays of light spilled over the skyline. She stood there a moment, breathing hard, staring at the reflection of the city she wanted to rise above. Then she turned and jogged toward her next shift. Her second job was at a storage facility on the west side. The manager barely looked up as she clocked out. Her paycheck, and when it came, went straight to medication, rent, and little else. By 10 a.m., Maya was back at Iron Crest, mopping the same spotless floor she'd been forced to fight on. Her arms burned, her back ached, but her expression was unreadable. From the office above, Richard Hale barked orders into his phone, pacing like a man who feared losing control. He didn't even look at her. Maybe he didn't dare to, but the others did. Trainers, clients, even the front desk staff, they whispered when she passed. Some laughed behind her back, others stared with something like unease. Hey, you've got guts, janitor, one trainer sneered. Maybe next time you'll fight for real. Laughter again, sharp and small like glass underfoot. She ignored it. She'd learned early that reacting only gave them power. Hard to ignore poison, said a voice behind her. She turned. Ray Morales, the maintenance man, leaned on his broom nearby. He was older, 60s maybe, eyes sharp despite the deep lines on his face. Poison? She asked, arching a brow. Yeah. Gossip. Spreads fast, leaves a stain you can't mop up, he said. His gold tooth caught the light when he smiled. You handled yourself well last night. Her grip tightened on the mop handle. You were watching? He shrugged. Couldn't look away. Not every day the janitor makes the champ flinch. I wasn't trying to prove anything. He studied her for a moment. Those hands of yours say otherwise. Calluses don't come from mopping floors. Maya looked down. Her fingers were wrapped in bandages, knuckles rough and bruised. Used to box a little, she admitted. Ray nodded slowly. Your grandfather taught you, didn't he? The old man from South Shore? She froze. How do you know about him? Ray smiled faintly. I used to tape his hands. Fought with him in the underground circuit back in the day. Maya blinked, stunned. You knew David Carter? Knew him, respected him, and feared his left hook. Ray chuckled softly. They called him Stonefist. He had something most fighters don't, control. Her throat tightened. He died when I was 10. I know, Ray said quietly. But his lessons didn't, I can see that. Before Maya could respond, Richard's voice echoed from his office. What do you mean he's dropping out? We had a deal. The glass walls couldn't contain his anger. He slammed the phone down and cursed. Ray tilted his head. Sounds like trouble for the king. What happened? Word is his second fighter just backed out of the upcoming tournament. Big one. 50,000 in prize money. Maya frowned. 50,000? Enough to change your life, Ray said. Enough to pay a few hospital bills. The number lingered in the air like a spark waiting for fuel. Ray leaned closer, lowering his voice. 3 entries per gym. He's down to 1. You could take that open slot. She shook her head. He'd never allow it. Ray smiled again, but this time it wasn't amusement, it was memory. He might not have a choice for long. That night, Maya helped her grandmother into bed. Lena's breath was shallow, her voice soft. You've been working too hard again, she murmured.
Your eyes have that same fire your grandfather had before a fight. Maya forced a smile.
I'm fine, Grandma. Just tired. The hospital called, Lena said. They said they can't hold off on the bill anymore. Maya's stomach sank. I'll figure it out. Her grandmother's eyes, sharp even in weakness, and searched her face. Some fights aren't worth winning, baby. Don't lose yourself chasing one. Maya kissed her forehead. Some fights are worth everything. That night she lay awake staring at the ceiling. The city hummed outside, the moonlight tracing shadows across the floor. The jade charm on her wrist glinted faintly, her grandfather's promise whispering from the past. 6 weeks until registration closed. 6 weeks to save her grandmother's life. 6 weeks to prove that silence can hit harder than any punch. And when Maya finally drifted to sleep, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't just going to fight. She was going to change everything. By the next week, whispers had turned into laughter, and laughter had turned into taunts that followed Maya wherever she went. The story of the janitor who thought she could fight had spread through Iron Crest like wildfire. Every smirk, every glance carried the same cruel message. Her mop strokes grew sharper each day. She cleaned with precision, with anger disguised as control. The floor gleamed like glass, but inside her something was cracking open. "Hey, champ," one of Troy's training partners called as she passed the heavy bags. "You sure you don't want to take another swing at our guy? Maybe this time he'll let you land a real one." Laughter exploded around the gym. Someone recorded it on their phone, the red light of the camera blinking like an accusation. Maya said nothing. She'd learned to let the storm pass. But that afternoon, when she went to her locker, she found a printout taped to the door, a picture from the security camera. Her holding the mop like a weapon, eyes caught mid-fear. Across it, in red marker, one word: joke. Her heart pounded. She opened her locker and a wave of sharp chemical fumes hit her, bleach mixed with disinfectant. Enough to sting her eyes and make her throat burn. She stumbled back, coughing. From behind her, a low voice said, "Careful with those chemicals. Maya, dangerous job cleaning." Troy smirked as he passed, his friends trailing behind him like shadows. That night, when Maya got home, her grandmother was sitting at the kitchen table, a letter spread before her. The color had drained from her face. "They denied the appeal," Lena said quietly. "The insurance won't cover my treatment." Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her. "There has to be something." "There's a trial program," her grandmother interrupted softly. "It could help, but we'd need $20,000 up front to reserve a spot." 20. Maya couldn't finish. Her voice cracked. Her grandmother folded the letter carefully, her hands trembling. "It's too much. I've made my peace." Maya knelt beside her, clutching her hand. "No, I'll find a way." The next morning, Maya stood outside Richard Hale's office before dawn, her stomach tight but her mind set. When he arrived, coffee in hand, she stepped forward. "Mr. Hale, can I speak with you?" He didn't even stop walking. "Make it quick. I've got things to do." "I want to train," she said. "Formally. I want to enter the tournament." He froze mid-step, then turned, disbelief twisting into a cruel grin. You're serious?" He laughed so hard it echoed through the entire gym. "You're a janitor, not a fighter. This place doesn't hand out charity memberships. I can pay the registration fee myself. I just need the gym affiliation." His smile vanished. "Even if you had the money, which you don't have a record. You don't have credentials, and you don't have my permission." He brushed past her, bumping her shoulder hard enough to spill his coffee across her shirt. "Clean that up," he said without looking back. As the liquid spread down her uniform, the sting wasn't from heat. It was from humiliation. She stood there in silence, surrounded by people pretending not to watch. Then she turned, walked to the supply closet, and changed her shirt. Her reflection in the mirror stopped her. The same tired eyes, but different now, focused, ready. That night, when she reached her old training warehouse, she found construction signs blocking the entrance. Future home of riverfront condos, private property. Her sanctuary was gone. The world, it seemed, was stripping her of every place to stand. She stood on the cracked pavement, the cold wind cutting through her coat, and whispered to herself, "You can take everything, but you won't take who I am." Her phone buzzed, a message from her second job. Schedule updated, new weekend shift. Reduced hours, her paycheck was shrinking. Her time was vanishing. Her hope was slipping. When she got home, her grandmother was on the phone, arguing with the pharmacy. "You sent the wrong dosage," Lena said, voice trembling with frustration. "I can't afford to refill early." Maya stood in the doorway, listening. The words hit harder than any punch. After hanging up, her grandmother sighed, shoulders sagging. The copay went up again. 200 more a week. Maya's jaw clenched. "Then I'll take more shifts." "You already work 2 jobs," Lena whispered. "You can't keep breaking yourself for me." Maya knelt beside her chair. "You take your medicine exactly as the doctor says. I'll handle the rest." Her grandmother's eyes softened with fear and pride. I just don't want to see you get hurt. Maya squeezed her hand. It's too late for that. The next morning, Ray found her in the corner of the gym, scrubbing equipment that was already spotless, her knuckles raw and bleeding. Heard about your talk with Hale? He said quietly. Did the whole city hear? She replied, voice tight. Just me. I've got good ears. He looked around, then leaned closer. You know, your grandfather once said something to me before a fight. If the door won't open, break the wall beside it. Maya frowned. Meaning? Meaning maybe you stop asking permission. Before she could respond, Troy's voice cut through the air. Hey, janitor. He was walking toward them, gloves slung over his shoulder, that same cruel grin on his face. Planning your big comeback? Or just daydreaming about hitting someone who matters this time? Maya turned away, trying to ignore him. Hey, I asked you a question, he said, stepping in front of her. His cologne was thick, his presence heavier. Move, she said quietly. Or what? You'll mop me to death? His laughter drew a small crowd. Her fists tightened. Her grandfather's voice whispered inside her head. Patience first. Precision later. Last warning, she said. Troy smirked, leaning close. You wouldn't dare! Her hand moved faster than thought. A sharp pivot, a twist of the wrist, and his grip broke. Her palm shot upward, stopping an inch from his nose. The sound of her movement sliced the air like a whip. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then gasps filled the room. Troy stumbled back, eyes wide. Not just from shock and from recognition. He'd seen that precision before, but not from anyone like her. What the hell was that? He barked, trying to recover his pride. She stayed still, calm as stone. Self-defense. Richard's voice boomed from the office above. Enough. He came down the stairs, face red with fury. You're fired. Get out. Security escorted her through the gym as silence followed. Not laughter this time, but silence. The kind that hums when people realize they've just witnessed something that doesn't fit their idea of the world. Outside, the air was cold, the city loud. But for once, Maya didn't feel small. She felt seen. And waiting by the curb, leaning against a car, was a girl around 16 with Richard's same sharp eyes. Bella Hale. I saw what happened, Bella said, lifting her phone. I recorded it. Maya frowned. Doesn't matter now. It does when my father fires someone for defending herself. He thinks money lets him play God. But not this time. She hit upload. That night, the city exploded with her story. The video spread faster than gossip ever could. Jim fires woman for defending herself. Comments poured in, support, outrage, solidarity. As the numbers climbed, Maya sat on the edge of her bed watching the view count rise like the tide. Then her phone buzzed again. A message. Community gym. 5 a.m. Don't be late. Ray, she looked at the clock. Then at her grandfather's charm, glinting faintly in the dim light. Her lips curved into a small, tired smile. It was time to stop surviving. It was time to start fighting. The dawn air cut through Maya's lungs as she made her way down the cracked sidewalk toward the address Ray had sent. The streets were quiet, washed in the pale blue of early morning. Her hands were shoved deep in her hoodie, her breath misting in front of her as she walked. When she reached the building, she almost walked past it. It was small, made of brick, darkened by years of soot and rain. The faded paint above the door read, Southside Community Boxing Gym. One of the windows was boarded up. Another was fogged with condensation. She pushed open the door. Inside, the air smelled of leather, chalk, and sweat. But not the kind from rich athletes. This was working-class sweat. Honest, heavy, full of effort. Old posters covered the walls, curling at the edges. Faces of long-gone fighters stared down, their eyes proud, their gloves taped. In the center ring stood Ray. He was already wrapping his hands, his gold tooth flashing when he looked up. You came, he said, not surprised, not smug, just certain. I didn't have anywhere else to go, Maya replied. He finished the last loop of tape and smiled. You've got everywhere to go. You just haven't seen it yet. He gestured toward a wall of framed photographs. Maya walked over. Among them was one that made her breath catch. A younger man, fists raised, smile fierce. Her grandfather. The caption beneath read, David Stonefist Carter, Southside Champion 1978. He built this place, Ray said quietly behind her, with 3 other fighters from the neighborhood. Wanted kids off the streets, wanted something that lasted. Maya reached out, touching the frame. Why didn't he tell me? He did. Just not with words. Ray jumped down from the ring, motioning for her to follow. You want to enter that tournament? We'll do it from here. Southside is still a registered gym. You'll need to pass a qualifying match in 3 weeks. Her pulse quickened. You'll train me? Ray nodded. If you can handle the truth. What truth? That this won't be about strength. It's about endurance, control, everything your grandfather believed in. That morning, training began. The gym was cold, the floor scuffed, the heavy bag patched with duct tape. But it was more alive than Iron Crest had ever been. Ray barked commands as she moved. Footwork drills, shadowboxing, endless burpees until her arms shook. Sweat dripped from her chin onto the cracked concrete. Again, Ray ordered, stopwatch in hand. Her lungs burned. Her legs trembled. Again. And she did. By the end of the week, word had spread. Locals came to watch the janitor who'd stood up to a champion. Some cheered. Others joined. Kids peered through the windows, curious. You're becoming a celebrity, Ray teased one evening, handing her a water bottle. I don't want fame, she said, gulping air. Good, fame doesn't make you dangerous. Focus does. But focus was getting harder to keep. Richard Hale had started fighting back in the shadows. Stories appeared online. Lies about Maya being violent, unstable, untrained. Potential opponents withdrew from the qualifying matches. Sponsors pulled out. He's trying to blacklist you, Ray said, jaw tight. Let him try, she answered. He can't block what he can't control. That night, when she came home, her grandmother was waiting at the table again, a letter open in front of her. They moved up the clinical trial, Lena said, voice steady but eyes worried. If we want a spot, we need the deposit in 10 days. 10 days? Maya echoed, sitting down heavily. That's before the tournament even starts. Her grandmother hesitated, then asked softly, What's this video everyone keeps talking about? People keep calling saying you fought at a fancy gym. Maya froze. She hadn't planned to tell her yet. I lost my job, she admitted. There was an incident. Were you hurt? No, I defended myself. Her grandmother's gaze sharpened. Defended yourself? Using what your grandfather taught you? Maya unwrapped the cloth around her wrist, revealing the jade charm. This was his. You know that. But you don't know what it means. Recognition flickered in Lena's eyes. Then fear. He promised me he'd never bring you into that life. You don't understand what it cost him. I know about the gym, Maya said quietly. I've been training there. With Ray. Lena went still. The oxygen machine hummed in the silence. You're fighting for me, she whispered. I'm fighting for us, Maya said. The tournament prize is $50,000. Enough for your treatment. Her grandmother shook her head, tears forming. No, I won't let you destroy yourself for me. It's not destruction, Maya said, voice trembling. It's the only thing I know how to do right. For a long moment, Lena said nothing. Then she turned away, shoulders small against the dim kitchen light. I can't watch you go down the same road he did. Maya sat in silence long after her grandmother went to bed. The jade charm pressed cold against her skin. Outside, sirens wailed faintly, distant but constant. She whispered to the night, I'm not him, but I have his blood, and I'll use it for something better. 3 days before her qualifying match, her grandmother called her into the living room. A small wooden box sat in her lap. I thought I threw these away, Lena said softly, opening it. Inside lay a pair of old, faded hand wraps. The jade thread woven through them caught the light. Your grandfather wore these in his last fight. Maya stared at them, speechless. I don't approve, her grandmother continued, but I know that blood doesn't listen to reason. Promise me one thing. Anything. Win or lose when this tournament ends. It ends. No more fighting after this. Get the money, save me, then build a life that isn't built on pain. Maya nodded, though part of her already knew the truth, that fighting was no longer just a way out. It was who she was. The day of the qualifying match arrived with gray skies and biting wind. The venue wasn't glamorous like Iron Crest. It was a community-centered gym, its paint peeling, its chairs mismatched. But it buzzed with energy, the crowd made up of locals, families, dreamers. In the front row, Lena sat in her wheelchair, portable oxygen tank beside her. When their eyes met, Maya's heart steadied. In the opposite corner stood her opponent, Maria Diaz, a regional champion with arms like steel and eyes that had seen too many fights. The referee called them to center ring. 3 rounds. 2 minutes each. Clean fight. The bell rang. Maya moved the way her grandfather had taught her. Low, patient, balanced. Maria came in hard, sharp jabs, confident footwork. The first round was technical, a dance of feints and counters. Between rounds, Ray wiped her face. Good work, but they need to see something special. Show them what Stonefist taught you. In the second round, Maria grew aggressive, pressing forward. A right cross slipped through, snapping Maya's head back. The crowd gasped. Blood trickled from her lip. Pain grounded her. Focus sharpened her. She shifted her stance, left foot angled, weight lowered, and unleashed her grandfather's signature move, the phantom step, a false pivot that drew Maria's guard one way while Maya's counter struck from the other. The hit landed clean. The sound echoed. The crowd erupted. Maria stumbled, blinking in surprise. The judges leaned forward. Even Ray's jaw tightened with pride. When the final bell rang, the noise was deafening. The head judge approached as Maya's gloves came off. Impressive technique, Miss Carter. Expect a call soon. As she left the ring, she saw Richard Hale standing near the back, face twisted with anger. He was speaking urgently to a tournament official, gesturing toward her. Her phone buzzed. A message. Congratulations. Approved. First match in 10 days. She looked up at the rafters, breathing hard, the scent of sweat and dust filling her lungs. For the first time in years, she smiled without forcing it. She had made it in. She was no longer the janitor. She was the contender. The morning of the tournament felt unreal. Maya stood in front of the mirror in the locker room, hands wrapped, heart racing. The walls of the Chicago sports arena hummed with energy. 1,000 voices, camera crews, flashes of light. She had never stood beneath lights like these. The smell of sweat and liniment hung thick in the air. Ray tightened the straps on her gloves. Remember what you are, Maya. You're not just another fighter. You're a legacy walking back into the ring. She nodded, her breath steady. I'm ready. The door opened and a tournament official stepped inside. Miss Carter, there's an issue with your registration. You need to come with me. Ray's brow furrowed. What issue? They followed the man to a small office where the tournament director waited, papers spread across the desk. We've received a formal complaint from Ironcrest Gym, he said. They claim you falsified your experience level and filed this cease and desist letter. Maya's stomach twisted, but the director continued before she could speak. However, after reviewing the footage from your qualifying match and the official's evaluation, the committee unanimously ruled in your favor. You're cleared to compete. Ray let out a low whistle. Looks like Hale's tricks aren't working anymore. Maya said nothing, but her jaw tightened. She could almost see Richard's face, red with frustration, furious that she was still standing. Her first match was against Miguel Santos, a powerhouse from one of the city's top gyms. When she entered the arena, the crowd buzzed with curiosity. Cameras followed her every move. The janitor fighter had become the story of the night. The bell rang. Miguel charged, testing her defense with heavy hooks. Maya didn't match force with force. She moved, ducking under his punches, using timing instead of power. Each slip made him angrier. Each counter landed cleaner. By the second round, sweat poured down Miguel's face. His breathing turned ragged. Maya saw the opening, a faint shift of his shoulder before the hook. She pivoted, delivered a sharp left counter, and watched as he stumbled to one knee. The referee began the count, but Miguel waved it off. I'm done, the crowd roared. Maya's first victory, a technical knockout. Ray grabbed her shoulders, beaming. That's how legends start. But Richard wasn't finished. Throughout the next round, small sabotage attempts began to appear. Her locker was reassigned to a utility closet with no ventilation. Her water bottles went missing. Her gloves were tampered with once. The padding uneven, the tape half peeled. Ray caught it before the match started. He's getting desperate, he muttered. Maya fought anyway. And she won. Again and again. Each fight drew more attention. Reporters filled the seats. Locals waved hand-painted signs in jade green, the color of her charm. By the semifinals, the city knew her name. The janitor who defied the rich, the woman who stood for everyone told they didn't belong. But then, hours before the semifinal match, disaster struck. During her warm-up, pain ripped through her right hand, sharp and immediate. She froze, gritting her teeth. Her knuckles throbbed, the old injury screaming back to life. Ray rushed over, eyes widening as he examined it. You can't go out there like this. The medics will disqualify you. I can't withdraw now, Maya said, voice shaking with resolve. Not when I've come this far. Her gaze fell to the hand wraps on the bench, her grandfather's old ones, the jade thread glinting faintly. The stone wrap, she whispered. He used it after his own injury. Ray hesitated. Maya, if we do this wrong, you could tear it completely. Then we'll do it right. With careful precision, Ray wrapped her hand, the jade stone pressing against the tendon to give support and pressure in just the right place. It wasn't painless, but the throbbing dulled. When she walked out toward the ring, the arena lights blazed above her like fire. Her opponent waited. Troy Bennett, the man who had once laughed at her with a mop in her hand. The crowd noise dimmed in her ears. She saw only him. As they touched gloves, Troy leaned close, his voice low and venomous. Hale says to tell you he knows about your grandmother. Shame that clinical trial spot's going to someone else after you lose. The words hit harder than any punch. The bell rang. Round 1 was a chess match. Troy fought with precision, not arrogance, testing, measuring. He'd studied her fights, adjusted. Maya moved light on her feet, protecting her right hand, using her left to control distance. The crowd was silent, watching two worlds collide. Round 2 began with fury. Troy came forward, relentless. His punches rattled through her guard, forcing her against the ropes. Her breath came in bursts. The pain in her hand pulsed with every block. Focus, Ray shouted from the corner. Use his speed against him. Maya ducked under a hook, her body remembering her grandfather's rhythm. When Troy threw another overhand right, she saw it before it came. The telegraph of the shoulder, the weight shift. She slipped left, pivoted, and landed a counter straight to his jaw. The crowd erupted. Troy stumbled back, eyes wide. That's it, Ray yelled. He drops his guard after the hook. Wait for it. The bell ended the round, but the air was electric. Reporters leaned forward. Spectators stood. Round 3. Final round. Troy came out wild, swinging harder, faster. His confidence was cracking. Maya stepped back, letting him waste his power. Her right hand screamed with pain, but she ignored it. She could feel the moment building. The rhythm, the shift, the second he'd go too far. Then it happened. Troy lunged, overcommitting to a right cross. His guard dropped for half a heartbeat. That was all she needed. Maya slipped under, pivoted, and unleashed her grandfather's perfected technique, the stone counter. A whip-fast right hook powered through the pivot of her hips, the torque of her core, and the jade-supported hand that felt like steel. The punch landed flush. The sound cracked through the arena like thunder. Troy's eyes rolled back. He hit the mat hard. The referee started the count. 1, 2. He tried to push up, swayed, and collapsed again. 10. The crowd exploded. Maya stood in the center of the ring, chest heaving, the noise washing over her in waves. Reporters shouted. Cameras flashed. Ray climbed through the ropes, grabbing her in a tight hug. You did it, kid. You dropped the king. In the stands, her grandmother raised a trembling hand, tears glistening in her eyes. The announcer's voice boomed through the chaos. Winner by knockout, Maya Carter. The crowd chanted her name, a roar that felt like justice. As she stepped down from the ring, reporters crowded close. Maya, how does it feel to take down the undefeated favorite? She glanced toward her grandmother, then back at the cameras. It feels like every person who was ever told they weren't enough just stood up with me. The cheer that followed was deafening, but not everyone was cheering. At the edge of the ring, Richard Hale stormed forward, his face flushed and furious. Check her wraps, he shouted. That's illegal. She's hiding metal in there. The referee frowned but nodded. Tournament officials gathered. Maya's hand was carefully unwrapped. The jade stone fell into the referee's palm. The crowd hushed. The director examined it, flipping through the rulebook. It's secured in regulation material, he said at last. No metal, no violation. She's cleared. The audience erupted again, this time louder than before. Richard's face twisted. You can't do this. She's a fraud. A janitor pretending to be a fighter. From the crowd, a new voice rang out, steady, clear, and full of quiet power. Everyone can hear you, Dad. It was Bella Hale standing near the aisle, her phone raised, and then the big screen above the ring lit up with a video feed. Richard in his office. Recorded weeks earlier, bribing officials, threatening organizers, promising money for fixed brackets, and even whispering instructions for Troy to hurt her enough to make her quit. The crowd erupted in fury. Boos filled the air. Security moved in. Bella's voice trembled but didn't break. You told me winning was everything. I guess you forgot what it's supposed to mean. Richard tried to grab her phone, but the cameras were already rolling. His downfall played out in front of thousands. As security escorted him out, sponsors' representatives turned their backs. The king had fallen. Maya stood there, staring as chaos unfolded, and for the first time in her life, she felt completely free. The final day of the tournament dawned calm and bright, the kind of morning that felt like a held breath before a storm. Maya stood outside the arena with her duffel slung over her shoulder, the sunlight glinting off the glass doors ahead. Inside, the crowd was already gathering, voices blending into a low, eager hum. Ray met her at the entrance, coffee in hand. Last one, he said. His voice was rough, but his smile carried pride. How's the hand? She flexed her fingers slowly, feeling the faint ache beneath the jade wrap. Hurts less than it should. Hurts enough to remind me I'm alive. He chuckled. That's the spirit. Remember, this fight isn't against the opponent. It's against the world that said you shouldn't be here. She nodded. Then I guess the world's about to lose. When she stepped into the ring, the roar hit her like a wave. Signs waved in the stands. Cameras flashed. The crowd was chanting her name now, not as a curiosity, not as a novelty, but as a fighter. Her final opponent was Layla Vargas, a quiet powerhouse with a reputation for speed and precision. The two women met in the center of the ring, eyes locked. No words, no taunts, just respect. The bell rang. Layla struck first, sharp and quick. Maya absorbed, dodged, learned her rhythm. It wasn't about dominance. It was about understanding the music of movement. Each exchange brought Maya closer to that pulse. Ray shouted from the corner, "Keep your balance. You own the ring." The second round blurred into a storm of motion. Sweat burned her eyes. Pain flared in her hand with every strike, but she didn't stop. The roar of the crowd drowned the ache, replaced it with something fierce and beautiful. Every time Layla landed a punch, Maya answered with patience. Every hit she took, she turned into rhythm. The fight became poetry, two fighters weaving pain into purpose. When the final bell sounded, both women stood gasping, arms trembling. The referee brought them to center ring. The crowd rose, a sea of noise that shook the arena. The judge's decision came through the speaker, unanimous. Maya Carter, champion. The sound that followed was pure thunder. Maya didn't raise her arms. She didn't need to. Ray climbed into the ring, wrapped her in a hug that lifted her off her feet. You did it, kid. You gave them something real again. In the front row, her grandmother sat in her wheelchair, tears streaking her face. She pressed a hand to her heart, lips moving silently in prayer or thanks. Maybe both. The tournament director stepped forward with the microphone. Maya Carter, as this year's champion, you are awarded $50,000 and the right to represent any gym next season. Have you decided where your home will be? The crowd quieted. Cameras leaned in. Maya took the mic, her voice steady but warm. My home is where my story began. Southside Community Gym. The place my grandfather built so people like me could believe they were more than their struggle. The applause rolled like thunder again. In that moment, something inside her shifted. Winning wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something larger, something that outlived fists and fame. Days later, the fallout from the scandal shook the boxing world. Richard Hale's empire collapsed overnight. Sponsors pulled out, his license revoked, and the story of his corruption became the talk of the city. His daughter Bella, the girl who had chosen truth over privilege, disappeared from the spotlight, her name whispered with a strange kind of respect. Maya didn't chase the fame that followed. She used the prize money to pay for her grandmother's treatment. The first day of the trial, Lena smiled wider than she had in months, color already returning to her cheeks. Outside the hospital, a group of children waited, holding handmade signs. We believe in you, Maya, they shouted. One little girl stepped forward, fists raised. Teach me how to fight like you. Maya crouched, smiling. You already know how. You just haven't had to yet. A week later, she reopened Southside Gym with Ray at her side. The floors were polished, the ring restrung, the air thick with the sounds of jump ropes and laughter. It wasn't fancy. It was alive. Dozens of kids filled the space, learning to jab, to weave, to trust themselves. Ray shouted instructions from the corner. Maya moved among them, correcting stances, adjusting grips. Every word she spoke carried her grandfather's lessons. Patience, timing, balance. At night, when the last student left and the lights dimmed, she would sit in the center of the ring, the jade charm resting against her wrist. Sometimes she'd open her grandfather's journal, reading the lines he'd written decades ago. Power hidden is power preserved. Now she understood. Power wasn't about proving yourself to others. It was about becoming strong enough to never need to. Months passed. Her grandmother's health stabilized. The gym grew. Reporters still called. Networks still begged for interviews, but she rarely accepted. The story wasn't hers alone anymore. It belonged to the people who came after her. One afternoon, Maya watched as a young girl, small, fierce-eyed, full of fire, practiced a combination she'd been struggling with for weeks. The girl finally landed it perfectly and her face lit up. Again, Maya said, smiling. Always again. The echoes of gloves hitting the bag filled the air. The sound was steady, strong, like a heartbeat passed down through generations. For Maya, it wasn't about victory anymore. It was about what victory could build. As the sun set beyond the gym windows, she whispered quietly, "Some fights never end. They just change form." She tightened the jade wrap around her wrist, looked up at her grandfather's photo on the wall, and smiled. The legacy lived on, not in trophies, not in glory, but in the quiet strength of those who refused to stay down. And in that quiet gym on the south side of Chicago, the sound of resilience continued, steady, rhythmic, unbreakable.